Well, hello there and welcome to our channel. First off, allow me to extend a hearty welcome to anyone who stumbled upon this channel after watching the introduction to Wilderness Survival Secrets. If you're new to our channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. It helps us reach more history lovers like you. Now let's dive right into the heart of this thrilling adventure. As many of you already know, our channel is all about bringing history to life. We dig deep into fascinating periods and pivotal moments that have shaped our world. And let me tell you, we've got a real treat for you in today's episode. Picture this, it's the year 1784, and you find yourself standing at the edge of civilization. Behind you are the bustling towns and well-trodden paths of the eastern states. Before you lies the untamed wilderness of the great American frontier. In this world, Daniel Boone is a legendary hero, and frontiersmen are the original rugged individuals. They're tough, resourceful, and ready to face whatever nature throws at them. It's a world that seems almost mythical, but it's as real as the challenges you'll encounter on your journey into the wilderness. Your journey begins as you cross the Allegheny Mountains. These aren't your typical hills. They're a barrier, a challenge, the last vestige of civilization before the wild frontier. As you climb higher, the air grows colder and the trees denser. By the time you reach the summit, you're surrounded by a sea of green so thick it feels like the forest is closing in around you. But as you crest the ridge, something magical happens. The world opens up before you, revealing a vast expanse of rolling hills and valleys. Here, rivers wind like silver threads through a tapestry of trees and wildlife. It's a breathtaking sight, but it comes with a heavy dose of reality. This wilderness is yours to explore, but it won't be easy. Days turn into weeks as you venture deeper into the heartland. You might find yourself hunting for food, building a temporary shelter, and learning to navigate without a map. Each day brings new challenges and triumphs, from tracking wild game to making campfires in damp conditions. And along the way, you'll discover the beauty of the natural world, the thrill of the hunt, and the satisfaction of building your own shelter. But the wilderness isn't just a playground. It's a harsh mistress that demands respect. You'll learn that the hard way when the weather takes a turn. Thunderstorms roll in, winds pick up, and temperatures plummet. Just when you think it can't get any worse, the rains come, turning your camp into a muddy mess and threatening to wash away everything you've worked for. It's a humbling experience, one that reminds you that in this world, nature is the ultimate boss. But as the days grow longer and the weather clears, you'll find yourself adapting to the rhythms of the wilderness. You'll learn to track animals by their footprints, to identify edible plants, and to read the signs of the weather. You'll even start to feel at home in the woods, even as you miss the comforts of civilization. As the weeks pass, you might find yourself venturing further and further into the heartland. You'll meet other pioneers and settlers, some friendly and helpful, others wary of outsiders. You'll see new settlements being established and abandoned, and you'll hear tales of adventure, hardship, and even tragedy. You might even find yourself caught up in a conflict with Native Americans who view your presence as a threat to their way of life. It's a tense situation, one that forces you to confront the realities of frontier life. As you continue your journey, you'll eventually reach the Mississippi River. This isn't just a river, it's a highway to the west. Here, you might hop aboard a flatboat or keelboat and join a crew navigating the mighty Mississippi to New Orleans. As you cruise down the river, you'll witness the changing landscape, from the lush forests of the South to the rolling plains of the Midwest. It's a grand finale to your journey into the heartland, a reminder of the incredible diversity of this untamed wilderness. As you return to civilization, you'll carry with you the skills and knowledge you've acquired along the way. You'll have a newfound appreciation for the challenges faced by the early pioneers and the resilience of the human spirit. You'll also have a treasure trove of stories to tell, from close calls with wild animals to epic battles with the elements. But perhaps most importantly, you'll have a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the natural world. Now, this isn't just a hypothetical journey. You can actually experience it for yourself. Several organizations offer immersive programs that recreate the challenges of pioneer life. From building a log cabin to cooking over an open fire, you'll have the opportunity to step back in time and experience the rugged reality of frontier living. In today's episode, we've taken that journey into the heartland and brought it to life through storytelling. Now it's time for you to do the same. Pick up a copy of The Pioneers and let your own adventure begin. Remember, in the world of the pioneers, survival wasn't just a matter of luck. It was a skill, a testament to the human spirit's ability to adapt and overcome. And as you turn the pages of The Pioneers, you'll discover that same spirit within yourself. So go on, my friends, embark on your own journey into the wilderness. Explore the untamed frontier and discover the pioneer within you. Before we wrap up this thrilling tale of the untamed wilderness, I want to introduce you to 3 amazing books that will deepen your understanding of the frontier experience. These books are more than just stories. They're portals to a different time, offering insights into the challenges, triumphs, and complexities of life on the frontier. First up, we have The River Why by David James Duncan. This captivating novel immerses you in the life of Gus Merrick, a young man who leaves his family's Montana ranch to reconnect with his estranged father. Along the way, he forms an unlikely bond with a Native American trapper named Selma. Together, they embark on a journey that's as much about self-discovery as it is about survival. Through Gus's eyes, you'll witness the raw beauty of the wilderness and the profound impact it has on those who call it home. The River Why is more than just a story. It's a celebration of the healing power of nature and the transformative journey of a young man coming of age. Next, we have A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. In this humorous and insightful travelogue, Bill Bryson sets out to hike the Appalachian Trail, one of the most challenging and rewarding trails in the United States. Along the way, he shares amusing anecdotes and fascinating facts about the natural and human history of the region. With his trademark wit, Bryson brings the trail to life, making you feel like you're hiking alongside him. A Walk in the Woods is a delightful read that captures the spirit of adventure and the joys of exploring the great outdoors. Finally, we have The Overstory by Richard Powers. This Pulitzer Prize-winning novel tells the interconnected stories of 9 characters whose lives are transformed by their relationships with trees. Through their journeys, you'll gain a deeper appreciation for the vital role trees play in our lives and the profound impact they have on our planet. The Overstory is a powerful and moving testament to the interconnectedness of all living things and the importance of protecting the natural world. These 3 books offer just a glimpse into the rich literary landscape inspired by the wilderness and frontier experiences. Each book is a unique and rewarding journey in its own right, and together they invite you to explore the untamed wilderness of the human spirit. So grab a copy of each book and get ready to be transported to a world of adventure, self-discovery, and environmental awakening. All right, everyone, that's a wrap on today's episode. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button below if you haven't already. And if you enjoyed today's content, please consider supporting us. Your support means the world to us and allows us to keep bringing you amazing history content. Thanks for joining us on this journey through time. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the past. The frontier had a heartbeat, and if you listen closely, you can still hear it. Now, if the frontier had a heartbeat, it was fire. Not a rifle, not a horse, not even a log cabin. It was the quiet, steady glow of a fire that made life possible in a land that didn't always welcome strangers. Without it, the frontier was cold, dark, and dangerous. With it, the wilderness felt just a little more like home. Today, we don't think much about fire. You press a button on the stove or flick a lighter, and there it is. Easy, instant, reliable. But for frontiersmen, getting fire wasn't quick or simple. It was an art, a skill that could take patience and practice, and one you had to carry with you every single day. Forgotten ways of making fire. Let's take a slow walk through the old methods, the ones nearly everyone has forgotten today. Flint and steel. This was the classic pioneer kit. A small piece of steel and a chunk of flint rock were as important as bread and salt. Strike them together and sparks flew. Not dramatic movie sparks, but tiny ones. Little specks of light that lasted just a blink. Those sparks needed tinder, something dry and delicate enough to catch them. Pioneers collected things like shredded bark, dried moss, or even fibers pulled from plants. Once the spark landed, the real work began. You bent close, breathed gently, and watched the smoke curl up. A flame was never guaranteed. Sometimes you had to try again and again. But when that little spark finally glowed, when it grew into a flame, it felt like a small miracle. The bow drill. This method was older than history itself. A bow, a spindle, and a piece of wood, simple tools that used nothing but friction to create heat. Slowly, carefully, the spindle spun, the wood smoked, and if you were lucky, a glowing ember appeared. Many pioneers carried flint and steel, but some still knew this older trick, passed down through generations. It wasn't easy, but it connected them to something timeless, the same method people had used thousands of years before. Char cloth. One clever frontier trick was to prepare for fire ahead of time. Scraps of cotton or linen were placed in a tin and heated until they turned black and fragile. This was called char cloth. It didn't look like much, but it caught sparks easily and held them long enough to start a flame. For many families, a little square of char cloth in a pouch was the difference between frustration and a warm meal. There were other ways too. A magnifying glass held to the sun, or even the careful use of a burning glass from a rifle scope. Some tried fire pistons, little wooden tubes that used pressure to spark tinder. But day after day it was flint, steel, and char cloth that kept most pioneers warm. The role of fire. Once the flame was alive, it was more than just heat. Fire filled almost every part of daily life. Cooking. Food on the frontier wasn't fancy. Sometimes it was a rabbit, sometimes just beans or bread. But fire turned raw food into nourishment. Roasting, boiling, baking in the coals, it gave variety and safety. Eating raw meat was risky, and even a simple stew felt like comfort after a long day. Warmth. Nights were cold and winters were long. A fire in the cabin hearth or a small blaze in a camp could mean the difference between comfort and misery. Families often gathered close, letting the flames chase away the chill. Without it, sleep came hard, and sometimes not at all. Light. Before electricity, the frontier nights were truly dark. A single fire lit up a cabin or campsite, its glow soft and steady. It allowed chores after sunset, quiet talks before bed, or simply the comfort of seeing one another's faces. Protection. Fire was a quiet guard. Wild animals kept their distance from flames. Even small pests like mosquitoes disliked the smoke. A ring of firelight around camp meant a little peace of mind, especially for children. Signaling. In the wide, open country, fire could call out to others. By day, smoke drifted high as a marker. By night, a flame on the horizon told travelers that people were near. It was the simplest way to say, "Here we are." Morale. Perhaps the most important role of fire was in the spirit. Sitting in darkness, surrounded by strange sounds, could weigh heavy on the mind. But a fire changed that. Its warmth and light brought calm. It was a reminder that humans could carve order out of wilderness. A circle of flame in the night was like a small piece of civilization itself. Fire in daily frontier life. Fire wasn't always dramatic. More often, it was quiet and ordinary. At dawn, someone would stir the ashes of the night's fire, searching for a hidden ember. If one glowed, it saved the trouble of starting over. A little tinder, a gentle breath, and soon the morning flame was alive. Breakfast was cooked, water warmed, and another day began. Children learned early to gather wood, dry twigs for kindling, thicker logs for the hearth. Carrying armfuls of sticks was a chore, but it was also part of survival. Without fuel, even the best fire died. At night, the fire was carefully tended. Some families banked it, covering the coals with ash so they would last until morning. Others let it burn low, ready to be fed again at sunrise. A cabin without a hearth fire felt empty, almost lifeless. Even travelers on the trail felt the same. After hours of walking or riding, building a fire was often the first task at camp. Tents or lean-tos came later. A flame was priority one. Gentle stories of fire. There are countless little stories where fire played its quiet part. Travelers on the Oregon Trail often describe their evenings by the campfire, wagons circled, food cooking, children laughing, and the glow of many small fires across the plain. Each flame was a family's comfort, a promise that tomorrow the journey would continue. In cabins through the winter, fire was at the heart of home. Families gathered near the hearth, telling stories, knitting, mending tools, or simply watching the flames. The crackle of wood was as familiar as a lullaby. It was steady, dependable, and always there. Even alone in the wilderness, trappers and hunters wrote in journals about their small campfires, the light, the warmth, and even the company, because in a way, a fire was company. Its flickering glow filled the silence. Fire as a symbol. More than anything, fire carried meaning. It was warmth and cold, light and dark, safety and fear. A small reminder that humans were not helpless in the face of wild nature. Every spark was a link to the past, to ancient fires in caves, to travelers before them, and to the generations yet to come. The frontiersmen may not have thought about it in deep words, but they lived it every day. Fire was their companion, their helper, and their quiet symbol of survival. So tonight, as you sit in your own home with lights that switch on in an instant, remember those old flames. Imagine bending close over tinder, coaxing a spark to life and feeling the relief when the smoke turned to fire. For us, it's simple convenience. For them, it was life itself. And in that soft glow, the frontier felt just a little less untamed. Thanks for watching. Remember to give this video a like. Also check out these other videos from our channel. If fire was the heartbeat of the frontier, then shelter was its skin. The protective layer that separated people from a world that was often harsh and untamed. To live on the edge of the wilderness meant learning how to rest within it. A roof, a wall, a corner of safety. These simple things carried deep meaning for those who built them. In a land where storms swept across prairies, where winters bit hard in the mountains, and where rain soaked forests without mercy, shelter was not a luxury. It was a necessity. And yet, beyond its practical role, it carried something gentler, a feeling of belonging. On the frontier, the word home did not always mean comfort in the way we think of it today. It might have been one room with a dirt floor or a lean-to built for a single night. But for the men and women who lived there, shelter meant more than walls. It meant a place where they could pause, breathe, and remind themselves that they were more than wanderers. When people today imagine the American frontier, they often picture a log cabin. Square walls of rough-hewn timber, a stone chimney rising from one end, smoke curling into a blue sky. Cabins were common in wooded regions, where trees stood thick and plentiful. The process of building one was slow but straightforward. Trees were felled with axes, stripped of bark and cut to size. Each log was notched so it could lock neatly with the one below. Stacked higher and higher, they formed walls solid enough to resist wind and rain. The cracks between logs were filled with mud, clay, or moss, whatever was handy, to seal out drafts. Roofs might be made from wooden shingles, or sometimes just more logs laid side by side. Inside, space was simple, a single room, perhaps with a loft above, where children slept under the roof. A fireplace or hearth was the center of it all, both for cooking and for warmth. Cabins varied in size. Some were only large enough for a family to squeeze inside. Others, built later, grew into multi-room homes. But even the smallest cabin carried immense meaning. For settlers, raising the first log of a cabin wasn't just the start of construction. It was the beginning of a claim, a place to stay, a corner of the world they could call theirs. Not every shelter was meant to last. Sometimes a man needed only a roof for a single night. Lean-tos were a simple answer. A pole laid against a log or tree, branches stacked across it, and leaves or bark piled on top. The result was a slanted roof. One side open to the fire, the other side turned against the wind. For hunters, trappers, and wanderers, the lean-to was a friend. It could be built in less than an hour, yet it gave enough cover to rest, to stay dry, and to rise with the morning light ready to move again. Brush shelters served a similar purpose. Branches, grass, and leaves piled into walls or domes made a quick barrier against weather. These were not elegant structures, they were rough, messy, and often temporary. But when rain poured or snow drifted, they felt like havens. Such shelters were reminders that survival was not always about permanence. Sometimes it was about enough, just enough to see the night through. In the endless prairies where trees were rare and horizons stretched in every direction, settlers had to think differently. No forest meant no log cabins. Instead, they looked down, to the very earth beneath their feet. Grasslands grew thick, their roots binding soil into tough layers. Settlers cut this earth into blocks, called sod, and stacked them like bricks. Slowly, walls rose from the ground, solid and heavy. Roofs, too, were often made from sod, with grass sprouting across the top. From the outside, a sod house blended into the land. From the inside, it was surprisingly sturdy. Thick walls kept out heat in summer and trapped warmth in winter. The rooms were cool, quiet, and protective, though they carried the scent of soil. Life inside a sod house was humble. Floors were often dirt. Rain sometimes leaked through. Insects could find their way in. Yet families raised children there, cooked meals, and survived long seasons on the open plains. These homes were not built for beauty. They were built for survival. And in their way, they became symbols of the frontier spirit, making do with whatever the land allowed. In rocky regions, like the Appalachians or further west into the Rockies, settlers often used stone along with timber. Stones made strong foundations and chimneys, while timber supplied the rest. Some shelters were little more than huts built into hillsides, their stone walls blending with the earth. Others grew into larger cabins, combining the permanence of stone with the flexibility of wood. These homes were especially valued in cold climates. Stone held heat from the hearth while timber provided insulation. Families who lived in such shelters knew they had built something that could last through storms and years alike. No matter the style, each shelter spoke of the frontier's most important lesson: the power of adaptation. To build a home on the frontier was not just about skills. It was about understanding the rhythms and materials of a wild land. Whether a grand cabin or a humble lean-to, each structure whispered this message. In the heart of America's wild lands, people forged lives that echoed the resilience of the wilderness itself. That's why stories of frontier shelters are more than tales of wood and stone. They're testimonies to the indomitable spirit of those who dared to dream of home amidst the untamed beauty of a new world. In the heart of America's wildest lands, life wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving. And that meant more than just food and safety. It meant finding beauty in the midst of challenge and building a haven from the raw elements. It was about transforming the rugged wilderness into a canvas for dreams. But it was also about making peace with the untamed world around them. For on the frontier, true strength wasn't about conquering nature, but about living with it, respecting its power and adapting to its rhythms. Every log cabin, every sod house, and every stone shelter was a testament to that philosophy. They were more than just houses. They were symbols of a way of life, a tribute to the pioneers who dared to dream of home in the heart of America's wild frontier. The wilderness is a place of silence, of whispers and rustlings that tell their tales only to those who know the language. In this untamed realm, life unfolds on its own terms, far from the clamor of civilization. But there's a rhythm here, a heartbeat to the wild, and it's in this rhythm that we find the soul of the frontier. And today we're going to explore what life was like back then by talking about one of the main things that the people back then did for survival, and that was hunting. And remember, everything that you're seeing here is made possible thanks to our supporters. So if you want to be credited as well, go ahead and join the team. There's a link down below, and if you'd like to help out even more, you can use the Super Thanks button. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more amazing content. Alright, now let's go. Food could not be gathered, had to be hunted. On the frontier, hunting was not sport. It was not luxury. It was necessity. Every bullet, every trap, every long walk into the forest meant food for the table or hunger at night. Hunting shaped the daily rhythm of the wilderness, and it shaped the men and women who depended on it. Tracking, reading the land. Long before pulling a trigger or setting a snare, frontiersmen had to learn to read the land. The ground itself told stories. A broken twig, a bent blade of grass, or a faint print in the soil could reveal where animals passed. Deer left cloven tracks, pointed and delicate. Rabbits pressed small round marks, often in quick clusters. Bears stamped the earth with broad pads. Skilled hunters read these signs the way we read words on a page. Sometimes the tracks were fresh, the edges sharp. That meant the animal was close. Other times the prints were faded, softened by wind or rain. That meant the trail was cold, but still useful. Hunters learned to follow slowly, eyes not just on the ground but on the whole forest. Branches snapped by antlers, bark rubbed by fur, even silence itself, which told of creatures hiding nearby. This was patience, not action. A man might walk for hours, breathing quietly, stopping often, simply to understand the story written by hooves and paws. Trapping. The silent harvest. Hunting with a rifle required time and luck. Trapping allowed frontiersmen to let the land work while they did other tasks. There were many kinds of traps. The simplest were snares, loops of cord or rawhide placed on trails where rabbits or small game ran. When an animal passed through, the loop tightened. For larger game, figure-4 traps or deadfalls were common. A balanced log, a small trigger stick, and bait. When touched, the log fell, pinning the animal. Trappers checked lines of these devices each morning, walking from one to the next. Sometimes they found nothing. Sometimes they found food for the pot. Other times they found furs which could be traded or sold. This quiet method was not about excitement. It was steady, methodical, part of the daily rhythm of life. The sound of a trigger snapping was not thrilling. It was reassuring. It meant survival. Hunting with firearms were precious on the frontier. Powder and shot were limited, and every bullet wasted meant less chance of eating later. The long rifle, often called the Kentucky or Pennsylvania rifle, became iconic. Its accuracy allowed hunters to take deer or turkey with care. Muskets, too, played a role, though they lacked the same precision. Hunting was never about firing wildly. It was about waiting. Hunters might crouch at the edge of a clearing, still as stones, for an hour or more. A single careful shot, placed true, brought meat for days. Even small game mattered. Squirrels, birds, and rabbits filled many pots when deer were scarce. Each shot counted, and nothing was wasted. Meat was eaten, hides were tanned, bones were used for tools, food and survival. The craft of hunting fed more than hunger. It fed families, communities, and the very possibility of settlement. Imagine a cabin in winter. Snow deep outside, winds howling. Inside, a pot hangs over the fire. Venison simmers, rich and filling. Without that deer, caught weeks earlier, the family would face only dry bread or roots. For children, meat was strength. For parents, it was peace of mind. Hunting was not glamorous. It was steady, necessary, and often humble. A rabbit roasted over flames could mean as much as a feast. Gentle stories from the frontier. Journals from the time often speak of hunting in plain words. One man noted, "Took a deer today, we will have stew." Another wrote, "Set traps for rabbits, found 2 this morning, enough." These short lines carried weight. They were not about triumph but about quiet relief. Each success meant survival, and each failure meant another day of searching. In prairie lands, some families remembered the taste of their first buffalo, shared by neighbors when supplies ran thin. In forests, children recalled the comfort of rabbit stew on cold nights. The memory was not of the hunt itself, but of the warmth that came afterward. The patience of the hunter. Perhaps the truest skill of the hunter was patience, to sit in silence, watching the trees, to follow tracks slowly, one step at a time, to wait for the right moment even when hunger pressed hard. Hunting taught a rhythm, not of rushing but of listening, watching, and moving gently with the land. This patience shaped character. It made men and women careful, deliberate, and observant. It reminded them that the wilderness did not bend to hurry. It had its own time, and those who respected it were rewarded. Hunting as identity hunting was not just about survival. It was also about community and identity. Men were often celebrated for their skill with a rifle or in setting traps. Women too participated, learning to shoot and becoming expert at preparing hides and meat. Hunting helped build communities as families shared their catches and taught others the ways of the wild. It also led to conflicts with Native Americans whose cultures revered the hunt and whose traditions and practices often differed from those of European settlers. Hunting as a bond, families often hunted together. Fathers taught sons to track, to shoot, to dress game. Mothers showed children how to prepare meat, how to stretch hides, how to use every part of the animal. Hunting bound families to the land and to each other. It was not a solitary act, even when done alone. Each animal taken became a shared meal, a shared memory, part of the quiet history of a home, the gentle symbol of hunting. In the end, the hunter's craft was more than skill. It was a symbol of survival itself. Where fire gave warmth and shelter gave protection, hunting gave nourishment. Without it, the frontier could not have been settled. With it, families endured, children grew, and small communities held together through the hardest seasons. Hunting was not glory. It was quiet work, patient, steady, respectful. It was the art of listening to the land and of finding enough to keep going. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel for more journeys into history. You can also check out our other platforms for even more content. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay curious. The frontier was a place of hard truths. Nothing grew without tending. Nothing stayed warm without tending. Nothing lasted without tending. On the frontier, nothing was valued more quietly and more deeply than water. Fire warmed the cabin, shelter shielded the body, hunting filled the pot. But water kept life itself moving. It was the unseen thread holding every day together. When you live on the edge of things, you learn to respect what's around you, to fear what's around you, and to depend on what's around you. And on the frontier, water was everything. Rivers, streams, and springs. The first frontiersmen quickly learned that where there was water, there could be life. Settlements often began near rivers. Streams offered fresh drinking water, fish to catch, and places to wash clothes or tools. Springs, bubbling from the earth, were like hidden treasures. Imagine the relief of stumbling across a clear spring after hours of walking under the hot sun. A traveler could kneel, cup his hands, and drink deeply, the taste cold and pure. Many journals from pioneers note the simple phrase, "Found good spring." Those 3 words carried enormous weight. Rivers offered more than just drinking water. They became highways. Canoes carried supplies, rafts floated logs, and larger boats connected frontier families with distant markets. The sound of flowing water often meant safety, a way to navigate, a place to rest, and a chance to refill empty skins. When those first explorers and traders and settlers came out onto the Great Plains, they saw a sea of grass stretching to the horizon in every direction. And they knew that sea of grass meant one thing, very little water. But then they also saw another thing, the lifeline that cut through the grasslands, rivers. Now the largest of those rivers was the Missouri River. It was huge. It was massive. It was almost like an ocean. It allowed people to travel farther west than they ever had before. It allowed them to explore lands that had never been seen by non-native peoples. That river and others like it were the lifeblood of the frontier. They sustained the people who lived along them. They provided the resources that allowed the frontier to grow and thrive. They became the arteries and veins of the new nation, collecting rainwater. But streams and rivers weren't always nearby. In dry stretches, settlers learned to turn to the sky. Rainwater was precious. Barrels were placed beneath cabin eaves to catch each drop sliding from rooftops. On hot summer days, the patter of rain on wood was more than pleasant background noise. It was promise. A barrel slowly filling meant drinking water for days to come. For children, dipping a cup into a rain barrel felt like magic, as if the sky itself had shared its gift. Sometimes, even animal hides were stretched out to funnel rainwater into containers. In this way, nothing was wasted. A brief shower could keep a family going longer than one might expect. Signs in nature. When no stream was visible and no rain had fallen, the land itself offered clues. Hunters and travelers learned to watch birds. Flocks often circled near water at dawn or dusk. Deer trails, well-worn paths through grass or brush, often led to hidden watering holes. Even insects, like mosquitoes or dragonflies, hinted that water lay close. Plants told stories too. Cottonwoods, with their tall frames and wide leaves, usually grew near moisture. Reeds and cattails marked ponds and marshes. A skilled frontiersman, just by scanning the trees and grasses, could often sense where a creek or spring was waiting, storing and carrying water. Once water was found, the next challenge was keeping it. Buckets, gourds, and clay jugs became essential tools. Some carried water in animal skins, stitched tight to hold liquid without leaking. A leather water bag, swinging from a saddle, was more than a simple item. It was survival on long rides. Settlers on wagon trains often spoke of filling every jug, barrel, and pot before setting off, knowing that the open prairie might offer nothing but dust for days. Children sometimes helped by carrying small wooden pails, their steps careful so not a drop was lost. Each vessel mattered, because water was never taken for granted. Making it safe. Not all water was safe to drink. Even clear streams could carry illness. Over time, frontiersmen developed ways to make water safer. Boiling was the simplest method. A pot set over fire turned cold creek water into steaming, safer refreshment. Charcoal filters made by layering sand, cloth, and burnt wood were sometimes used in camp. Even when science was not fully understood, experience taught families to be cautious. Stories passed down often warned of sickness from bad water holes. Slowly, the habits of boiling, filtering, and choosing carefully became a quiet but important part of daily survival. The sound of water. Water was not only necessity, it was also comfort. The sound of a creek flowing past a cabin, the splash of children's hands in a pond, or the soft rhythm of rain on a roof brought peace in a harsh world. Many remembered these sounds more clearly than the struggles of hunting or chopping wood. One traveler once wrote, "Camped by a stream, slept soundly. It wasn't the fire or the blanket that made sleep easy. It was the murmuring water nearby, steady and calm, reminding him he was not alone in the wilderness." Hard times. Drought and thirst. There were also times when water vanished. Summers stretched long, rain failed, and rivers ran shallow. Families dug wells by hand, lowering buckets deeper and deeper into dry earth, praying to hear the splash of water below. One frontier diary notes, "No rain this month. Children cry from thirst." These simple words remind us how fragile survival could be. Some told stories of walking miles for a single bucketful, the liquid shared carefully among many mouths. A sip was treasured, not gulped, and when rain finally came, the joy was beyond words. Children ran barefoot in the mud, mothers filled every vessel they owned, fathers looked to the sky in quiet thanks. Water shaping settlements. Water shaped where cabins stood and where towns grew. A good spring could become the heart of a small community. Wells dug together meant neighbors helping neighbors. A river crossing often grew into a village, where ferries carried travelers back and forth. Even large cities of later years began with the same truth. Water first, building second. Without water, there was no reason to stay. With water, life could take root. Emotional weight of water. On the frontier, water was never just liquid. It carried emotional weight. The sight of a clear stream could bring hope to the weary. The taste of cool water after a long day of work was relief itself. For many, water was the link to home. A shared cup at the table, a bucket drawn from the family well, the laughter of children chasing each other with dripping hands. It was both survival and comfort, both necessity and joy. Stories remembered. Some families kept simple memories of water close. One pioneer woman recalled the first spring found near her cabin site. "We drank, and I felt safe at last." Another man, after weeks of dry travel, wrote, "Rain fell today. I wept." Such short lines tell us how deeply water shaped not only survival but emotion. Each drop mattered. Each stream gave strength. Each well carried peace of mind. Closing reflection. In the wilderness, water was the hidden lifeline. Not as dramatic as fire, not as visible as shelter, not as demanding as the hunt. But it was constant, quiet, and utterly necessary. To find water was to find hope. To lose it was to face despair. It was the thread woven through every other survival skill, because without it no fire could warm, no shelter could protect, no meal could satisfy. Water was life itself, flowing gently through the story of the frontier. In the wilderness, knowing where you were and where you were going was as important as food or fire. The land was vast. Forests stretched without end. Plains rolled on like oceans of grass. Mountains rose in quiet defiance. A single wrong turn could mean hours, even days of wandering. Yet the frontiersmen learned to read the land as one might read a book. They did not always carry maps, and compasses were not always at hand. Instead, they trusted the sun, the stars, the lay of the land, and the quiet signs hidden in trees, rivers, and skies. Navigation was not only skill, it was reassurance. It was the calm knowledge that no matter how wide the wilderness seemed, there was always a way forward. Our story today is brought to you with the support of our community of members. If you would like to join them, visit our website. Our story today is brought to you with the support of our community of members. If you would like to join them, visit our website. The sun as a guide. The sun was the first compass. Rising in the east, setting in the west, it offered a steady rhythm. At dawn, frontiersmen watched its slow climb. At midday, when shadows shrank beneath their feet, they knew it was noon. In the evening, the fading light pulled them westward. Travelers often marked their paths by the angle of the sun. A man walking north could check his direction by noticing the morning glow on his right. Children, too, learned this simple truth. Follow the sun, and you could find your way. In cloudy skies, the trick was harder. Yet even diffused light gave hints. The brighter side of the horizon revealed the hidden sun, and so the journey continued. The moon and stars. When the sun sank, the night sky became the map. The moon in its cycles often gave light to travelers on the trail. A full moon meant long journeys could continue after sunset. Its place in the sky, like the sun's, offered direction. But it was the stars that gave the clearest guides. The North Star, steady and unmoving, pointed north through every season. Frontiersmen lifted their eyes to find it, taking comfort in its fixed presence. The sweep of the Big Dipper, the arc of Orion, the scattered dust of the Milky Way. These constellations were not just wonders to gaze at. They were silent markers, helping weary travelers orient themselves in the endless dark. Some wrote in journals of long nights when the only certainty was the stars overhead. Kept course by the North Star. One note reads, "No more words were needed. The meaning was clear. The sky itself was the companion that brought them safely through." Rivers and mountains. Not all navigation was in the heavens. The land itself gave direction. Rivers were natural highways. They always led somewhere, to larger waters, to settlements, to fertile valleys. Travelers followed them both upstream and down, knowing that sooner or later rivers connected lives. Mountains, too, became steady companions. From afar, their peaks marked distance. Up close, their ridges offered natural boundaries, guiding feet through valleys and passes. A lone mountain on the horizon could serve as a landmark for days, keeping wanderers steady on their path. Some families recalled choosing cabin sites simply because a river curved nearby, or because a mountain's outline gave them comfort. These features became both guides and anchors, ways to find direction and ways to feel at home. Signs in the forest. In dense woods where the sky was hidden, other signs appeared. Moss often grew thick on the north side of trees. Bark patterns changed with exposure. Trails made by deer carved faint but steady paths through undergrowth. Even fallen logs pointed clues. Streams eroded them in certain ways. Winds toppled them in familiar patterns. A skilled woodsman could pause, glance at the details around him, and quietly know which way to turn. Children raised in such forests often remembered these small lessons. "The tree will tell you where north is," a father might say. Such wisdom, passed down in quiet words, shaped survival for generations. The silence of being lost. Yet for all this knowledge, there were times when the land confused even the most skilled. A thick fog, a storm, or a forest that seemed the same in every direction could disorient anyone. Being lost was a silent fear on the frontier. No sudden danger, no dramatic chase, just the slow realization that every tree looked the same, every path circled back. Hunger grew sharper, thirst more pressing, as hours slipped by. Journals sometimes recorded this dread in simple words: lost the trail, walked until dark, slept uneasy. But often patience saved the day. By waiting for the sun to rise, by listening for the sound of a stream, or by spotting a familiar ridge, the lost found their way again. The wilderness, after all, did not move. With calm observation, the path always returned. Tools of the traveler. As trade expanded, more frontiersmen carried compasses, maps, and guides. A small brass compass tucked into a pocket became a trusted friend. A map, even roughly drawn, helped families follow wagon trails or find water sources marked by earlier travelers. Still, these tools were not always available. Many relied on memory. The bend of a river, the shape of a clearing, the stand of pines leaning in one direction. Memory itself became the compass, sharpened by necessity. Navigation and community. Finding the way was never only about individuals. It shaped whole communities. Settlements formed along known trails, where travelers could rest, trade, and find guidance. Wagon trains followed routes learned from generations before, paths marked by rivers, mountains, and stars. Neighbors guided one another through unfamiliar ground, sharing knowledge freely, because in the wilderness, survival was shared. In this way, navigation built more than safe journeys. It built bonds. The emotional comfort of direction. There is a special peace in knowing where you are going. On the frontier, that peace was rare, but precious. A family might set out across prairie, the horizon endless. With the sun steady on their right shoulder, they felt calm. A hunter deep in forest glimpsed moss on the north side of a trunk and knew he was not wandering blind. A traveler, after long days, spotted the familiar peak of a mountain and smiled in relief. Direction gave not only safety but comfort. It reminded the weary that they were not adrift, that the world, vast as it was, could still be read and understood. Throughout the Great Plains and the wild mountain states, across the thick forests of the Northeast and the sun-baked deserts of the Southwest, the art of finding one's way was a quiet triumph. It was a testament to the human spirit, which, no matter how lost it felt, could pause, look up at the sky or down at the earth, and discover the strength to keep moving forward. Our story today is part of our series on the American frontier. You can find more stories like this one on our channel. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to leave a comment or suggest a topic for a future video, please feel free to do so. And if you would like to join our community of members, you can learn more about how to do so on our website. Special thanks to our supporters whose names you can see on screen now. Their support makes it possible for us to bring these videos to everyone for free. We'll see you next time. The flickering lamplight danced in Elias's eyes, making them shine as bright as the steel he worked on. His gnarled hands moved with a lifetime of practice, each stroke on the sharpening stone whispering of countless tools brought back to life. In the quiet of his workshop, amidst the scent of sawdust and leather, Elias wasn't just sharpening axes, he was holding stories. Each groove in the blade, each ding and scratch was a tale waiting to be told. The tools he worked on weren't just pieces of iron and wood. They were threads in the fabric of lives lived hard, good and full on the frontier. In the heartland of America, when life itself seemed as raw and unyielding as a natural rock, it took grit and resilience to survive. But it was during those times that these tools became more than possessions. They were companions, confidants, and silent witnesses to the journey of a nation. Elias had heard all sorts of tales, stories that began with the thud of an axe biting into a tree, or the whittle of a knife shaving off thin slices of wood. Each nick, each scar on the tools he held, had a story behind it. He knew that because he'd heard them over and over again throughout his life in the settlements, the woods, and everywhere in between. Some of these stories were epic, like the tale of Jedediah Smith and his comrades who battled a grizzly bear near the Wallowa River. Jedediah, they said, used a bowie knife that was as long as his arm to fight the beast, jabbing and slashing until it finally retreated. That knife, Elias figured, must have been a marvel to behold, a dance of death and survival under the Oregon sun. Then there were stories like the one about Daniel, Boone's friend who was lost in the Kentucky wilderness. All he had was a small pocket knife, but he used it to build a shelter, craft snares, and keep busy until help arrived. In his solitude, that knife became his only friend, a testament to the human spirit's ability to persevere with nothing but ingenuity and a sharp blade. And then there was the story of Old Tom, a trapper who lived among the Rockies for so long that his beard grew as thick and tangled as the underbrush. Legend had it that he carried a well-worn rifle that had seen more seasons than any living man. The rifle was more than a tool to him. It was a connection to the spirits of the mountains, a whisper of wisdom with every shot. According to the stories, Old Tom could track animals, set traps, and predict weather changes just by listening to the secrets his rifle seemed to hold. Elias ran a calloused thumb over a rifle barrel, imagining the hands that had gripped it before. These stories weren't just tall tales. They were the backbone of frontier life. They were lessons, warnings, and celebrations all rolled into one. They showed the settlers what was possible, the tools they needed, and the dangers to watch out for. And at the heart of these stories were three tools that whispered across the wilderness: the axe, the knife, and the firearm. The axe, where frontiers began. Each swing of the axe echoed not only through the trees but through the very essence of frontier life. With a well-placed strike, a single person could fell a tree as tall and strong as any challenge they might face. The axe represented more than just strength. It was a symbol of independence, of taking raw materials and shaping them into something useful, of turning the wilderness into a home. Elias remembered the first time he'd seen a settler arrive in a new valley. They'd come with little more than an axe and a dream, and as he watched them start their work, he knew that from that moment on, that person would never truly be lost. They had the ability to shape their future with every swing, to build a shelter, to clear a space for planting, to create a life from the heart of the wild. The knife, in every hand. The knife was more than just a tool. It was a constant companion, a friend that never left your side. It helped with everything from building a shelter to mending clothes. It was a source of comfort in times of trouble, a silent witness to everyday life. Elias had seen many fine hunting knives in his time, each one meant to be a trophy or a statement. But the one that had always stuck with him belonged to a mother who used it to skin rabbits and cut wood for her fire. Her hands were gnarled and strong, and her knife was as sharp and dependable as she was. He'd watched as she effortlessly skinned a rabbit, the way her knife slid through the fur as if it were water. But it wasn't just the skill that amazed him. It was the quiet confidence in her eyes, the way she didn't hesitate or ask for help. She knew that with that knife she could take care of herself and her family. The rifle. The last line of defense. The rifle was a symbol of courage, of facing danger head-on. When all other options failed, when a settler's very survival was at stake, the rifle was there, a trusty companion in the face of the unknown. Elias remembered a young hunter named Caleb who'd gone out to shoot a deer for his family. But when he returned, there was a wild look in his eyes and a strange animal dangling from his horse. It was a mountain lion, its fur as dark as midnight. Caleb told them that as he'd approached the deer, the mountain lion had jumped out and attacked him. All he could do was raise his rifle and pull the trigger. Looking at the rifle afterwards, Elias could almost hear the roar of the mountain lion and feel the tension in Caleb's hands. But there was no fear in his eyes, only determination. The rifle had protected Caleb, allowing him to return home with food for his people. Each of these tools, The axe, the knife, and the rifle symbolized a different aspect of frontier life, but together they formed an unbreakable bond, a promise of survival. Just as the tools hung side by side in a settler's home, they hung in the memories of those who lived on the frontier. They were not just objects, they were lifelines, connections to the rhythms of nature and the pulse of human resilience. And as Elias looked at the tools scattered around him, he knew that they were more than just possessions. They were stories waiting to be told, adventures waiting to be relived, and a testament to the human spirit's ability to thrive even in the wildest corners of the earth. In the vibrant tapestry of American history, the frontier emerges not just as a physical expanse but as a state of mind, a testament to the indomitable spirit of exploration, survival, and the relentless pursuit of a new life. At the heart of this narrative stand three iconic tools: the axe, the knife, and the firearm, each leaving an indelible mark on the lives and landscapes of those who dared to venture into the untamed wilds. Together, they form a powerful narrative of resilience and adaptation, echoing the struggles and triumphs that shaped a nation. If you find this video interesting, please remember to leave a comment below and share it with others. Your engagement helps us continue producing quality content. And for more historical journeys, don't forget to subscribe for more updates.